Hi, I'm Dawn Fleming, host of the Midlife in Paradise channel. Thank you for being here. I put this video together to answer the most common questions that we've received about moving overseas. In 2008, we were devastated by the financial crash, and I explained how that all came about and what we did afterward in this video. After we had recovered in 2016, we invested in real estate in Mexico. We had no intention of moving there, but a year later, we thought, why not? We had a business we could work from anywhere. So we jumped on our sailboat and went down to see if we liked it. If we liked it, we'd stay. If we didn't, we'd go somewhere else. And we did like it, so we stayed. Over the years, I've gotten lots of questions. I answered many of them in my book, Claim Your Dream Life, How to Retire in Paradise on a Shoestring Budget. There's a link in the description. I've also prepared a document, The Ultimate Insider's Guide to Starting Your Overseas Retirement. It answers the most common questions that I get about moving overseas. I've created a series of videos, and you can get the answers to each individual question just by watching a quick video. But if you want the comprehensive document, there's a link in the description. Dawn, how do I even start the process? My answer is you are blessed with the gift of imagination. No other creature on earth can imagine and envision what their future could be. The foundation for creating the life you want starts with visualization. Your imagination fuels your creativity and brings forth the things you want in your life. If you can see it in your mind's eye, if you can dream it, you can achieve it. Enough with the busyness of life, the distractions, and the constant demands for our attention. Set aside a time when you can really ponder the important questions below. Think deeply about your vision. Reminisce, reflect, and remember the moments of joy in your life. Let your mind wander and see what comes to you. Take out a notebook and write down your responses, thoughts, ideas, and feelings about each of these questions. Here are your dream life questions to answer. 1. What would you do if you had the time and money to do anything you wanted? 2. Where would you put your energy? 3. What do you really want? But more importantly, why? 4. What have you ever dreamed about doing, being, or having? 5. What would you do if you won $50 million in the lottery? 6. How would you invest your newly acquired wealth and time? See, as children, we daydreamed and perhaps got in trouble for it. We were told to pay attention, stop wasting time, and be practical. Forget all of that. For now, don't be practical. Daydream and imagine the future without limits. What if what you imagine could be real? It may sound corny, but this process flat out works. It's the reason my husband Tom and I now live our dream life. It's because many years ago, we created a crystal clear vision of what we wanted our life to be, and you can too. And then what? Well, after getting really clear about your ideal lifestyle, there are 3 ways you can proceed with your boots or sandals on the ground plan. 1, vacation with a purpose. In other words, explore possible locations by vacationing there. 2, do a longer 30 to 60 day beta test where you live like a local. In other words, you test the waters before you take the big plunge. And number 3, really important, rent before you buy. We rented 2 homes in Florida because we didn't know if we were going to like it there. We're really glad that we did because, as it turns out, neither one of them were our ideal location. So we were able to just move on. We didn't have to worry about, oh, we bought a house, now we have to sell it. So always rent first. Do I need to give up my citizenship if I move abroad? The answer? No, you don't. Under US law and most other countries, dual citizenship is perfectly legal. So there's no requirement to relinquish your US passport. This concern is nothing but a myth. In 1967, the Supreme Court rule affirmed the right of dual citizenship. ever since, acquiring citizenship in another country does not signal an American's intent to relinquish U.S. citizenship. However, the U.S. requires all citizens to use their U.S. passport when they enter the United States. Before 2015, it was a crime for U.S. citizens to enter Cuba. That changed under the Obama administration, and then those regulations were later reversed, leaving U.S. citizens vulnerable to the whims of U.S. political winds and changes in governmental policy. History is filled with examples of how a second passport can literally save your life. Many repressive governments have blocked their citizens from leaving. They can legally do that because your passport belongs to the government that issued it, not you. That means they can legally seize it or suspend it at will. Having a second passport or residency can provide you with security and peace of mind if political turmoil occurs or there's an economic upheaval. Let's face it, most of our American ancestors left their home country for a better life. There's no reason you can't or shouldn't do the same thing. Dawn, can I still collect my Social Security or pension benefits if I live overseas? Answer: yes, absolutely. If you are a U.S. citizen and qualify for Social Security, retirement, family, survivor, or disability benefits, you may continue to receive your benefit payments while living in most other foreign countries. Due to Treasury Department sanctions, the U.S. Social Security Administration will not send money to anyone residing in Cuba or North Korea. That said, affected U.S. citizens can recoup any of those missed payments once they move elsewhere. In 8 other countries, Azerbaijan, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Moldova, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan, Americans may only receive Social Security payments under certain strict conditions, such as agreeing to appear personally at a U.S. embassy or consulate every 6 months. If you're a non-U.S. citizen who qualifies for benefits based on your own work history, you may also receive them while living abroad, depending on your country of citizenship and residence, subject to the payment restrictions mentioned earlier. Non-citizens eligible for family or survivor benefits may need to meet additional criteria. To learn more about eligibility to receive benefits in a foreign country, you can contact the Social Security Office of Earnings and International Operations or call 410-965-0160, or you can go and do a search for payments while you're outside the United States. But regardless of where you live, your Social Security payments will be calculated and paid out in US dollars. The Social Security Administration defines living outside the United States as not residing in one of the 50 states, the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, Guam, the Northern Mariana Islands, or American Samoa for at least 30 consecutive days. If you return to the U.S. and stay for more than 30 consecutive days, you're not considered to be living abroad. The SSA sends recipients who are living abroad a questionnaire every 1 or 2 years. The frequency is dependent on age, country of residence, and other factors to confirm they remain eligible for benefits. If you fail to respond, the Social Security Administration will halt any benefit payments. The vast majority of Social Security recipients living abroad receive benefits via electronic deposit at a U.S. bank or a financial institution in a country with direct deposit agreement with the United States. When using a foreign bank, they may deduct international transaction fees. Now, my husband Tom does collect Social Security. I do not, but his Social Security deposit is made into a US bank account, and we transfer funds as needed from the United States to Mexico, usually into our Mexican bank account. Dawn, living abroad sounds expensive. Can I really afford it? Answer, if you are concerned about the rising cost of expenses, understand that it may cost you more to stay in the United States than to move overseas. Perhaps no other financial strategy can reduce your expenses by 50% as effectively as moving abroad. When you do, it means you do not have to sacrifice a great quality of life to, hopefully, have a bright economic future someday. Geo arbitrage can provide you with the opportunity to travel the world, live in beautiful places, dine out frequently, and enjoy personal services such as massages and a cleaning maid for far less than the average US middle-class budget. Geo arbitrage simply means saving money by moving to a lower cost area while you maintain the same level of income. Not only can it reduce your living costs while increasing your quality of life, it's a very smart long-term financial strategy. Housing costs eat up the lion's share of income for most middle-class earners and retirees. If you can reduce your housing expenses by 50% or more, that has a profound economic impact on your finances. You are then free to allocate your previous housing expenses to savings and investments or way more fun. Your housing expense isn't the only budget item that has extreme savings potential. When we moved to Mexico, we bought a Yamaha 115cc motor scooter to get around the island. We paid about $1,200. The exact same scooter would have cost 3 times that much in the United States. Our used Nissan SUV costs half of what the same vehicle would have cost in the United States. Our annual auto insurance policy with full coverage for 2 drivers was less than $300. Auto repair bills are astonishingly low. Routine service calls to repair air conditioners, pool filters, or locksmiths don't break the bank. Prices for consumer and household electronics and appliances such as washers, dryers, refrigerators, stoves, dishwashers are about 50% less than comparable models sold in the United States. Can I find good healthcare services or get insurance? Answer: when considering a move overseas, many people want to know about healthcare, and the majority want information about cost, coverage, and pre-existing conditions. The United States is an outlier, spending a whopping 18% of GDP on healthcare consumption. On average, other developed nations spend about half that amount. A Kaiser Family Foundation survey found insurance premiums in the USA have increased over 55% in the last 10 years. The USA ranks number 1 in per capita spending on healthcare, yet it stands at only number 37 globally in quality of care. Unfortunately, the US healthcare system is broken and Americans do not get what they pay for. Sad, but true. The truth is, there are better healthcare systems in the world that cost far less and deliver far superior care than the United States. It is utterly shocking to think about how much people pay for health insurance in the US, a cost that continues to increase dramatically. It's amazing how many times we hear stories about insurance companies refusing to pay medical bills when you submit them, or patients who believe something is covered and then get surprised by unexpected bills. The US healthcare system is unlikely to change anytime soon, regardless of which political party gets elected. There are just too many entrenched interests in the US focused on maximizing profits over people. It is a sickness system. It is not a wellness system. In many other countries, more resources are invested in preventive care. Of course, if you prevent illness, medical providers can't bill as much, which reduces corporate profits. That is the reality of the US healthcare system and why it has not and may not be reformed. While Medicare Part A and B, often referred to as Original Medicare, do not cover you while outside the United States, you can get coverage through Part C Advantage plans. These plans often have zero premiums and cover emergency and urgent care medical services. In order to qualify, you must have Medicare Part A and B plus an address in the United States registered with Medicare. The address will determine your service area and need not be the same address as what is on file with the IRS. It may be prudent to use an address close to loved ones, so if you need to return to the US for medical care, you have some local support. Dawn, should I rent first or just go ahead and buy a place to live? Answer: definitely rent first. We moved from California to Florida, where we rented for 6 years. The first area we moved to was not a good fit, so we moved to a second part of the state. After 4 years, we decided to move on. Now, we lived in nice houses without having maintenance or repair responsibilities. Had we purchased a home, it would have severely restricted our options to move somewhere else. If you don't really know an area well, it makes sense to test drive it by renting for a while before making a huge financial investment. Consider the Goldilocks method. When Barbara Harris and her husband left Canada, they had a specific plan for finding their paradise. They envisioned being part of a Mexican community, so their plan included studying Spanish so they could communicate with the people they met along the way. Their plan called for them to downsize from a big house to a 2-bedroom condo before they began the drive from Canada to Mexico. They owned a timeshare, so they researched and found 8 units available in the interior of Mexico, all within driving distance. The 2 senior citizens hit the road in a big old gray van with Canadian license plates and driver's licenses. They spent a week in each location, driving from place to place. At first, they lived in Puerto Morelos, an adorable beach town halfway between Cancun and Playa del Carmen. They loved it there, but it's a small town. Other towns were too big and touristy. They wanted something in between. So they rented a car for a week and lined up a realtor who showed them beautiful colonial homes in Merida, which were extremely affordable. They loved Merida, but they had just moved from the hustle and bustle, buses and busy streets of Vancouver, British Columbia, and they weren't interested in city life. So they checked out Progreso, a beach area about a half-hour drive north of Merida, to look at a few homes there. As they drove back to Merida, Barbara told her husband they could afford the last villa they saw. They called their realtor in Canada and said, sell it. They made an offer on a Progreso villa 1 block from the beach, and 7 months later, they packed up and moved to their beautiful, fully furnished 2-bedroom, 2-bath villa with a private swimming pool for 140,000 Canadian dollars. After 4 years, her husband longed for mountains and ocean views. Although they both loved the ocean, they decided to try something more scenic. They rented a house in a gated community called Los Arroyos, about 10 minutes from the ocean outside Puerto Vallarta, and they stayed for 5 months. One day they saw an ad for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo with vaulted ceilings that overlooked a golf course on the 3rd floor. They jumped on it. Their realtor recommended a contractor to redo the kitchen. They went overboard with the remodel, but it was stunning when it was finished. Living on the third floor with no elevator became challenging when Barbara developed health issues and hip problems. They sold the condo and moved back to Los Arroyos. The gated community was a fallback place and not really their cup of tea. One day, Barbara was on Facebook and saw a great property. It had been a mango farm owned by a couple with 7 kids. The dad died young, leaving his wife with 7 children. They continued to run the mango farm, and any extra money they had was used to buy more land. The property was eventually subdivided into 20 good-sized lots. Now, Canadians, Americans, Mexicans, and 1 Italian have bought lots and built wonderful homes. Barbara and her husband rented the last home owned by the original owner. It's still a gated development, but it suits their lifestyle a lot better. They positively love the home and the location. It takes 1 minute to get to the main road, and then in 6 minutes, they're at the beach. They can park right there and walk the beach, or be at 2 or 3 restaurants in a couple of minutes. It's just a 10-minute drive to 3 major grocery stores that has everything she wants. Goldilocks finally found her paradise, a place that's just right. The lesson in this story is to be flexible. Don't be afraid to try on different locations, lifestyles, and climates until you find one that's a perfect fit. It's much easier when you are unencumbered by real estate. Dawn, is it safe to move overseas? Answer: safety is an important consideration anytime you move, not just overseas. I often laugh when I hear comments people make. Is it safe in Mexico? Because Mexico is a big country, and there are all kinds of cities and villages of different sizes. There are large areas with literally no people. It's sort of like asking, is the United States safe? In any country, we know there are safer areas, and there are probably some unsafe places, particularly after dark. The local area where you actually live is more meaningful than how safe the country is overall. This is not to say that some countries do not have safety issues. Safety is a consideration, but that should be part of your plan and something you research at the local level. Here's what Becca Alvarez has to say about safety. Everyone always asks her if she feels safe. She laughs and says she feels safer in Mexico than she does in the US. After living in Mexico for 1 year, they moved to a new suburb in Franklin, Tennessee, where all the homes were worth about $400,000. On their first night in the home, with everything still in boxes, she and her girls went to dinner. When they returned, the home had been broken into, and the only things stolen were 2 little baby turtles they had worked so hard to bring back from Mexico. She thinks it was just some neighborhood kids that broke in and took the turtles. But Becca says nothing like that has ever happened to her in Mexico. After a year in Tennessee, they returned to live in Mexico. Becca was so fearful of child abduction in the United States, she would never let her 2- and 4-year-olds play out in the yard by themselves. Never, ever. In fact, she knows of no parents in the US who would ever let their children play in the front yard by themselves anymore, even at 5 or 6 years old. In Mexico, she's not concerned about that at all. She loves that children can run around her town just like they did 50 years ago in the United States. Now that her girls are older, they walk from the neighborhood into downtown Pátzcuaro during the day and take taxis by themselves to return home. There's more about Becca's amazing lifestyle. Dawn, what about my family that I leave behind? Living abroad isn't always easy. There are a lot of adjustments that are required, including having to be away from loved ones and friends. But there are ways to show people you love them, even if you're an ocean or several continents away. Sometimes living abroad can come with loss and even involve coming up with creative ways to love people from afar. There are strategies you can employ to help ease this transition. Perhaps the savings you realize by moving overseas means there are more resources available to travel and go see your loved ones. Another consideration is, how much time does my family really have for me? My friend Keith had a beautiful home in Cancun. Missing his family, he decided to sell and move back to the United States to be closer to them. He relocated to North Carolina, where his family lived. Like many, Keith's family was always busy. Work, school, activities always seemed to interfere with Keith's desire to see them. They simply had no time. After 8 months of living near family, yet hardly seeing them, Keith moved to Florida. Keith moved to a very large and popular Florida retirement community called The Villages. It's a very active community, but he learned the hard way that his priorities were not in alignment with those of his family. Sure, they love each other, but sometimes life can be busy and gets in the way. I'm reminded of the song Cats in the Cradle by Harry Chapin. This experience is certainly not unique to Keith. Retirees frequently miss their families and move back to their previous area of residence. Sadly, while they might be lucky to see family once a week, they really miss their friends the other 6 days of the week. My mom told me about a couple who sold their house, moved out of her community in Tucson, Arizona. They made a huge mistake moving back home. They ended up returning to my mom's community to rent a place. Dawn, how can I generate income while living overseas? Answer: thanks to technology, there are more opportunities to work remotely than ever. The COVID pandemic changed the way workers and companies view work from home. You get to decide where that home is located, and now it can be anywhere in the world. There's plenty of remote work and even more opportunity if you have an entrepreneurial spirit. If she lived in the US making $100,000 or more a year, Becca Alvarez could have a nice car, live in a nice place, and essentially be living paycheck to paycheck. As a single mother raising daughters, it was not what she wanted. Her employer offered her the chance to work remotely, so Becca decided to move to Mexico. Now her family lives as if they were millionaires with the same US salary. She can put her daughters in private schools, take 2, 3, 4 vacations a year, and have full-time help managing the household. They live in Michoacan, in an area with mountains, trees, lakes, and volcanoes, where the climate is 74 degrees year-round. She says it's like living in Southern California at 1/10 the cost. How much does this lifestyle cost Becca? Rent for their 4-bedroom home is $300 a month. She moved to Mexico with no furniture because it would cost more to move her furniture than to buy custom-made furniture in her new city. Becca showed pictures of pieces she liked from Pinterest to the carpenter who made them for pennies on the dollar. 4 full-time employees manage their household. Because Becca travels for business, her right-hand gal, Clementina, runs everything. She does all the menu planning, grocery shopping, cooking, laundry, ironing, and works 5 days a week from 8 until 4. Becca employs a full-time nanny for her 3-year-old toddler. A part-time housekeeper cleans the house 7 days a week for $60. The yard is about 2.5 acres of land, so she has a full-time gardener. He's the young adult son of Clementina and does all the gardening. He's also a handyman and takes care of anything that breaks in the house. And if her car needs repairs, he'll take it to the mechanic for her. Becca's job is intense, and she works from 8 until 6 or 7 at night, and sometimes on weekends. So she doesn't have time to do anything domestic. When she does stop working, her focus is spending time with her daughters. It's such a gift. Moms in the US, even those who are well paid, do everything. Perhaps they have someone clean once a week or twice a week, some only once a month. They're trying to prepare the meals, do the shopping, laundry, homework with the kids, and hold together their families while working full-time jobs. The stress of moms in the United States is off the charts. By living in Mexico, Becca reduced her stress, does not live paycheck to paycheck, sends her daughters to private school, and takes 3 to 4 vacations a year. Becca and her family's quality of life in Mexico is so much better than it could ever be living in the United States, especially as a single working mom. Dawn, how do I select a location? Answer, there are many factors to take into consideration when selecting a location. Some of the factors to consider include affordability. How affordable is the destination's cost of living? Many people invest or move abroad because costs are lower. 2. Healthcare. What medical services are available in the area and how are they rated? Many expats are moving to countries where medical costs are lower than in the United States. That's most of the world. In fact, many foreign doctors were educated and or trained in the United States and are bilingual. 3. Lifestyle. It's important to consider climate, language, culture, work ethic, and quality of life when researching where to move. Even better, make a few trips and rent for a while to really get the feel for the location. 4. Accessibility. Is this a place that's easy to get to? How's the infrastructure, transportation, local services, internet? Are there satisfactory medical facilities close by? 5. Community. What's the culture like? Is it warm and friendly? Is it accepting of newcomers? Is an area that is thriving or on the decline? 6. Climate, weather. What's important to you? Are there any geographically specific concerns, such as hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanoes? Do you melt in the humidity or do you like it hot? 7. Activities. What do people actually do there? Is it tourist driven? Are there cultural events? If it's a sleepy coastal area and you love to go to the theater or even the movies, it may not be a good fit. 8. Safety. It's prudent to use caution regardless of where you are in the world, but using common sense goes a long way. Don't flash jewelry or other valuables. Stay away from known bad areas, especially late at night. Make friends with the locals who will show you around and watch after you. Every place has some crime, and it is a factor to consider. 9. Language. Do you know the local language? Are you open to learning a new language? Do the local residents speak enough of your native tongue for you to get by? To get answers to other questions, go ahead and download the Ultimate Insider's Guide to Starting Your Overseas Dream Life.